Okay, we need to get to the bottom of the differences between the sequential Prophet 6 and the Dave Smith Tom Oberheim OB-6. Obviously, they're both kind of put out by DSI. They both have a pretty similar size. They both have similar functionality, and I'm pretty sure a lot of the functionality is exactly the same. However, there is a different layout, and some of the functionality is quite different. And I want to show you what that functionality is and how it sounds. So the best thing for us to do is to start off with Oscillator 1 and VCO 1. Oscillator 1 on the Prophet 6 and VCO 1. Okay, we have on the Prophet 6 the sawtooth wave, which is the indicator pointing straight up, because this oscillator has a triangle, a sawtooth, and a square, all continuously variable. The OB-6 has a sawtooth and then a square wave, continuously variable. So already they're completely different. But we will start with the sawtooth wave and see what we have. Okay, here's the Prophet 6. And here is the OB-6. Let's hear them next to each other. Now, right off the bat, I can hear a difference in intonation. They are slightly tuned differently, but it's very, very subtle. But taking the tuning out of the issue, there is a difference in quality. I won't say quality. There is a difference in harmonic content. There's a difference in timbre. Let's play a chord to see. Now, I want to be clear. If you have an oscillator that has a sawtooth wave, odds are that sawtooth wave is going to be a sawtooth wave. And by definition, if it is an actual sawtooth wave, it's going to sound very similar to anything else that's making a sawtooth wave. The differences lie in how perfect the sawtooth wave is and how much variability exists in that sawtooth wave. So two different synthesizers, two different modern synthesizers with the sawtooth wave are going to sound very similar if you're only hearing the sawtooth wave. But these sound different. One of the things I'm hearing, and maybe you're hearing it too, is that the OB-6 has more high-end content in its sound. Now, this may be because, synthesizers aren't just, if we're listening to the oscillator, we're not just listening to the oscillator. The oscillator is still going through the filter, even if the filter is completely open, like we have it right here on both synthesizers. So it's possible that the filter can color the timbre of the oscillator. So one could say, well, maybe the difference we're hearing is because there are two different filters of two different types. And that's true. It may be that. However, I think we're going to find as we move on that it's more than that. Okay, let's go to the square wave and see what we have in that department. Again, you can hear a slight difference in pitch. But again, the square wave of the OB-6 has a brighter quality to it. And if you are sitting there and you're saying, dude, those sound exactly alike. Well, I don't know how to tell you that they don't. On a very general level, they do sound exactly alike. But on a specific level, they don't. They have different timbres. And those differences may not be as apparent right now as they will be in other contexts, because once you add a filter and start shaving frequencies out, it's going to respond differently. And also when you're using an oscillator as a modulator, a different shaped wave is going to have a different outcome. Okay, so that is awesome. But let's figure out some things about pulse width. Pulse width, first of all, on the OB-6, I have that turned all the way up. And we are not, it obviously does not go to a pulse width of 100% because that would be silence. It does have 0%. I've turned it all the way down, nothing. So that's different from the Prophet 6, which has both a pulse width of 100% and 0%. Yeah, I'll have to turn the right knob. Okay, see, we're not hearing anything. That's 100%. And there's 0%. And that doesn't mean a whole lot, except for they're going to respond differently when they're modulated. Because with the Prophet 6, you have the opportunity, the possibility that your modulation might go up into the 100% and down into the 0%. So you'll have like gaps in sound. The sound will come and go. Whereas you only have that happening on the 0% side with the OB-6. So that means that the pulse width modulation is going to be slightly different. Okay, now let's go on to Oscillator 2, where I think we're going to find a little more overt differences. Okay, turn down Oscillator 1 or VCO 1 on this synth. Turn up VCO 2. Turn down Oscillator 1 on the Prophet 6. Turn up Oscillator 2. Okay, and we have this currently set to triangle on both of them. Here's the triangle on the Prophet 6. And here is the triangle on the OB-6. I think you can tell right away they are quite different. The triangle on the Prophet 6 is a much darker sort of triangle, more sine wavy, whereas the triangle on the OB-6 has this very high-end sizzle, which is even a little bit more of the sizzle you usually get. You know, usually a triangle has just a little bit of high frequencies in it. This has a fair amount of them in an interesting way, which means filtering it is going to sound more exciting, and maybe that's why it's that way. Okay, now let's have a listen to the sawtooth, which we've kind of already experienced. Whoops. We've already experienced this in the other, but you can tell that they are slightly different. And then the square wave. Wow, there's quite a substantial tuning difference there. But also the timbre is quite different. Let's see if we can mess around a little bit with the pulse width. The pulse width is very similar to what we showed you in Oscillator 1, where on the Prophet 6, you have 100% and 0%. And on the OB-6, you don't have 100%, but you do have 0%. But yeah, I probably don't need to beat this to death, but there are definitely differences in these wave shapes. They do seem to go through similar timbral patterns, but just slightly differently when they are there. So yeah, we have two oscillators that sound quite different. And here is another example of this. Okay, let's go over to the sub-octave. Now the sub-octave is a frequency that comes off of the first oscillator. The first oscillator's square wave is divided in half, giving it an octave lower square wave. And that's where our suboctave comes from on the Prophet 6. Although that does sound very much like a triangle. It sounds like the triangle we just listened to on the OB-6. In fact, let's listen. Okay, it's different, but it's the same sort of it's the same sort of triangle-y sound with a sizzle on top. I thought this was a square wave. Anyway, at least on the OB-6, the suboctave definitely gives us a square wave, which is quite different from the triangle sounding wave we're getting from the Prophet 6. So yes, quite a different sound. That's gonna make quite a difference as well, in addition to the timbral differences of the other waveforms. And let's not forget that, especially in the second oscillator, which is going to be driving our X mod, cross mod on the OB-6 and the poly mod on the Prophet 6, if the wave shapes are different shapes, they're going to affect that modulation differently. And that's an important thing to remember.